Well, hello. I have not done a podcast or videocast this year, 2020. Today's April 9th, and I'm on lunch break, having to work from home, of course, for the foreseeable future. And, I think now more than ever is a time when people need some encouragement, right? And there's all kinds of considerations there. My little videocast last year were about finances, faith, family, Um, family meaning some updates with the medical challenges we had last year. Baby Graceland's doing great this year, and we are so grateful. She was born December 13th, 2019. So she is almost 4 months old now and kicking all the time. And her smile absolutely melts you. We've had a few scary moments where we didn't know if she was okay, but she was fine. Sometimes things pop up and go away, and we're new parents and we don't know anything. So, anyway, it's been a journey. And so, anyway, maybe one day Baby Grayson could be on a video cast. So that's family update. As far as finances, oh man, what a crazy time we're in. I'm thankful that I work at a college here in Tennessee. Well, I live in Georgia, so I'm actually technically working, but my employer, Chattanooga State, is in Tennessee. And even though the city has been on its own lockdown of sorts, or whatever you want to call it, shelter in place, and the state, and of course, the state of Georgia where I am, et cetera, et cetera. Um, I'm thankful to be able to still work. Now, some people are getting paid and not having to work, but they may have a less pay because the employer may drop some of the hours that are eligible for that pay. Others are completely being laid off. This is Thursday. There was a jobs report out again today. Another, I think, 6.6 million people laid off. So that brings us to at least 16, probably 16 and a half or more million in the U.S. And that number is probably going to continue to go up as long as we have to shelter in place and all those things. So hopefully the coronavirus mess will go away soon and get back to normal life. Anyway, so as far as finances, of course, all last year when I was doing these little video casts, I talked about an emergency fund, and that was why I didn't pay my house off earlier because I did not want to deplete the fund. I had calculated what I felt the fund should have in it, and then before I did a bunch of extra spending or even, like I say, mortgage payoff, even though the other debts were taken care of or non-existent. We didn't have other debts other than just we pay off the credit card every month, no interest, no fees. But anyway, my point was I prioritized paying off the credit card, paying all bills, of course, even paying off medical. And I didn't even do payment plans with those. It could. Maybe that's smart for some. But to make sure that I have enough in the emergency fund to meet deductible every year for insurance and probably up to out-of-pocket max because that's what's been happening to us. Um, so that money needs to go ahead and be on reserve, at least in a health savings account, if not in your actual bank savings account. Either way, health savings has a little bit of tax advantage. So thankfully, I didn't invest it drastically because it could have lost a lot of value when the market lost 30%. Now, it seems like it's partially coming back. We'll see, but who knows? But thankfully, the HSA is there. So we had to tap that because the medical just keeps coming for our family. And then, believe it or not, car insurance and house insurance also have deductibles. I think we forget that. Cash out of pocket before they'll start covering. My house insurance deductible is $2,000. I also added earthquake coverage because we have had some rumbles around here in the last few years. And that's a $4,000 deductible if I have to make a claim for earthquake. But anyway, so $2,000 for that, for regular house insurance claims. For the car, I think it's a percentage based on, I forgot. I don't remember. I should know. I don't remember the dollar amount. I think in the general range of 500. I am started in the right way there, if I recall. So basically, and then any repairs here at the house that might be unexpectedly needed. We had an HVAC go out last year. We actually have 2 units, so I have to worry about the other one that's older. We've already had some work done to it, but If I did have to do a full replacement, hopefully the ducting would be fine, just be the unit, but there's another 2,000-3,000. So you add all these things up, and for me, the magic number came out to about 10,000. So my goal is to not pay off the house unless I had 10,000 in savings. Oh, and car repairs, right? Because insurance doesn't cover that if your car breaks down. So you would want at least, I would suggest at least 500 for that, maybe more. I actually think about car replacement, not just car repair, because I drive older cars, and if the engine blows, like happened to my Nissan last year, I mean, I had a lot of stuff happen last year. Car, medical, HVAC. Anyway, so with vehicle, we buy used cars, and a decent car, yes, it may have 100,000 on it, but you can usually get those for, I think, around 5,000 or 6,000. If you're buying from another person, assuming the title is clear and everything is kosher there, then you could actually get a really good deal. If you're trying to buy from a dealership, used cars are generally more than 10,000, especially if you're trying to get below 100,000 miles on it. So if you kind of remember that 10,000 range or less to have a car that has 100,000 miles or more on it, then and we bought a car from a dealership last year, but it was a used car dealership. It was in Dalton, Georgia, and it was not near as expensive. The trick about those you have to be really careful. I found at the title office is some of them don't report to the state what they should. So the state goes to register your car in the system, and they say, oh, I'm sorry, this is no good. So you do want to research your dealerships, I found out. Thankfully, we didn't have that issue. But in that city where we bought the car last year to replace mine, that was a big deal. So anyway, come to find out. So just a lot of considerations financially. But what about the virus situation? What about people that are getting laid off right now? What about people that don't have an emergency fund, that did not prepare for this when times were good? First of all, let this be a lesson. Even if you don't have an emergency fund, I can't magically produce one for you other than these stimulus checks that may be coming. How about build and start your emergency fund right there? And you may say, well, I have bills to pay. And of course, you can start with that. You can file for unemployment. You can see if your employer is doing anything to help if you're laid off. This is a great time to find work for the companies that are desperately hiring because of needing to move product quickly so that people can stock up. By the way, the CDC says you ought to have at least 2 weeks, and they've said this for years, whatever, 2 weeks of food on hand for a pandemic. We are in a global pandemic, according to WHO. So it surprises me when you hear your leaders say, oh, we should only buy for about a week at a time. That's not actually their own ready.gov type suggestions, or it may not have been CDC, it might have been ready.gov. But anyway, ready.gov is a great website, by the way, to prepare for things. So let this virus be a lesson. First of all, we are fortunate that this virus isn't the kind that just kills everybody across the board. Typically, there has to be an underlying condition. Thank God for that. Saves a lot of lives, even though we're losing a lot of lives, unfortunately, but it could be a lot worse. But could there be a worse virus down the line? Of course. How could you bury the head in the sand and not think so? Which means we should always have 2 weeks of food on hand. We should always have an emergency fund on hand for if we get laid off. And so I would say get those things started with your stimulus check. Now, how do you get the check? Apparently, you have to file taxes for 2018 or 2019, unless you're drawing Social Security, and then they're waiving that requirement. So you say, well, I didn't have to file taxes. File anyway. Plus, if you did work and you didn't have to file, you might get money back. If you did have to file, it was the law. You should have filed anyway. So file taxes, get the refund check, and then be strategic. Why not make this our opportunity to develop some positive financial habits and be strategic with money going forward? So, and then as far as faith, we talk about family, we talk about finances, talk about faith. I do believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. I do not want to be ashamed of Christ. And, churches can't meet generally. We haven't been to church in quite a while. Really since we had the baby. But that's one reason I wanted to do the podcast or videocast, just to encourage you that the Lord hasn't changed because of some virus or because of a layoff. And, it's easy for me to say that because I haven't been laid off yet. And I hope, not to be. But the promises of God are true. And I think a virus or any other layoff, any kind of trial in our life is an opportunity to come home to the Lord and to get back on the knees and say, first of all, Lord, I want to be right with you. If there's anything that wasn't right leading up to this, I want to make that right. I want to be right with people. If I need to apologize for anything, I want to do it. Because you got to start there. And before you go worshiping the Lord, we need to be right with the Lord. And then I think it's a call to action. Lord, what do you want me to do? Well, how can I encourage others, or how can I prepare, or how can I be active at home? How can I provide security for my family? And maybe you're the one to get out there and get a few groceries and establish a good financial pattern and make sure you have a little necessary medicine on hand and some things like that, and just to be in a strong place. So those are some things to think about. And I'm going to leave this right now, short and sweet. I hope it's encouragement to you. But again, right with the Lord, right with others. Lord, what do you want me to do? All right, everyone, take care out there. Hope to do more of these.